is published. Educator-author George Counts asserts that the teachers should deliberately reach for power and then make the most of their conquest in order to influence the social attitudes, ideals, and behavior of the coming generation. The growth of science and technology has carried us into a new age where ignorance must be replaced by knowledge, competition by cooperation, trust and providence by careful planning, and private capitalism by some form of social economy. 1933 The first Humanist Manifesto is published. Co-author John Dewey, the noted philosopher and educator, calls for a synthesizing of all religions and a socialized and cooperative economic order. Co-signer C.F. Potter said in 1930, "Education is thus a most powerful ally of humanism, and every American public school is a school of humanism." What can the theistic Sunday schools, meeting for an hour once a week, teaching only a fraction of the children, do to stem the tide of a 5-day program of humanistic teaching? 1933 The Shape of Things to Come by H.G. Wells is published. Wells predicts a Second World War around 1940, originating from a German-Polish dispute. After 1945 there would be an increasing lack of public safety in criminally infected areas. The plan for the modern world state would succeed on its third attempt about 1980 and come out of something that occurred in Basra, Iraq. The book also states, although world government had been plainly coming for some years, although it had been endlessly feared and murmured against, it found no opposition prepared anywhere. 1934 The Externalization of the Hierarchy by Alice A. Bailey is published. Bailey is an occultist, whose works are channeled from a spirit guide, the Tibetan master demon spirit Dwalkul. Bailey uses the phrase, points of light, in connection with a new group of world servers, and claims that 1934 marks the beginning of the organizing of the men and women group work of a new order, with progress defined by service, the world of the brotherhood, the forces of light, and out of the spoliation of all existing culture and civilization, the new world order must be built. The book is published by the Lucis Trust Incorporated, originally in New York as the Lucifer Publishing Company. Lucis Trust is a United Nations NGO and has been a major player at the recent UN summits. Later Assistant Secretary General of the UN Robert Mueller would credit the creation of his World Core Curriculum for Education to the underlying teachings of Dwalkul via Alice Bailey's writings on the subject. 1932 Plan for Peace by American Birth Control League founder Margaret Sanger 1921 is published. She calls for coercive sterilization, mandatory segregation, and rehabilitative concentration camps for all dysgenic stocks, including blacks, Hispanics, American Indians, and Catholics. October 28, 1939 In an address by John Foster Dulles, later U.S. Secretary of State, he proposes that America lead the transition to a new order of less independent, semi-sovereign states bound together by a league or federal union. 1939 New World Order by H.G. Wells proposes a collectivist one-world state, or New World Order, comprised of socialist democracies. He advocates universal conscription for service and declares that nationalist individualism is the world's disease. He continues, the manifest necessity for some collective world control to eliminate warfare and the less generally admitted necessity for a collective control of the economic and biological life of mankind are aspects of one and the same process. He proposes that this be accomplished through universal law and propaganda or education. 1940 The New World Order is published by the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace and contains a select list of references on regional and world federation, together with some special plans for world order after the war. December 12, 1940 in the Congressional Record, an article entitled A New World Order. John G. Alexander calls for a world federation. 1942 The Leftist Institute of Pacific Relations publishes Post-War Worlds by P.E. Corbett. World government is the ultimate aim. It must be recognized that the law of nations takes precedence over national law. The process will have to be assisted by the deletion of the nationalistic material employed in educational textbooks and its replacement by material explaining the benefits of wiser association. June 28, 1945 President Truman endorses world government in a speech. It will be just as easy for nations to get along in a republic of the world as it is for us to get along in a republic of the United States. October 24, 1945 The United Nations Charter becomes effective. Also on October 24, Senator Glenn Taylor D. Idaho introduces Senate Resolution 183 calling upon the U.S. Senate to go on record as favoring creation of a world republic including an international police force. 1946 Alger Hiss is elected president of the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Hiss holds this office until 1949. Early in 1950, he is convicted of perjury and sentenced to prison after a sensational trial and congressional hearing in which Whittaker Chambers, a former senior editor of Time, testifies that Hiss was a member of his Communist Party cell. 1946 The Teacher in World Government by former editor of the NIA journal National Education Association Joy Elmer Morgan is published. He says, in the struggle to establish an adequate world government, the teacher can do much to prepare the hearts and minds of children for global understanding and cooperation. At the very heart of all the agencies which will assure the coming of world government must stand the school, the teacher, and the organized profession. 1947 The American Education Fellowship, formerly the Progressive Education Association, organized by John Dewey, calls for the establishment of a genuine world order, an order in which national sovereignty is subordinate to world authority. October 1947 NIA Associate Secretary William Carr writes in the NIA Journal that teachers should teach about the various proposals that have been made for the strengthening of the United Nations and the establishment of a world citizenship and world government. 1948 Walden by behavioral psychologist B.F. Skinner proposes a perfect society or new and more perfect order, in which children are reared by the state, rather than by their parents, and are trained from birth to demonstrate only desirable behavior and characteristics. Skinner's ideas would be widely implemented by educators in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s as values clarification and outcome-based education. July 1948 Britain's Sir Harold Butler, in the CFR's Foreign Affairs, sees a new world order taking shape. How far can the life of nations, which for centuries have thought of themselves as distinct and unique, be merged with the life of other nations? How far are they prepared to sacrifice a part of their sovereignty without which there can be no effective economic or political union? Out of the prevailing confusion a new world is taking shape, which may point the way toward the new order. That will be the beginning of a real United Nations, no longer crippled by a split personality, but held together by a common faith. 1948 UNESCO President and Fabian socialist, Sir Julian Huxley, calls for a radical eugenic policy in UNESCO, its purpose and its philosophy. He states, thus, even though it is quite true that any radical eugenic policy of controlled human breeding will be for many years politically and psychologically impossible, it will be important for UNESCO to see that the eugenic problem is examined with the greatest care and that the public mind is informed of the issues at stake. That much that is now unfolding